Howdy, today I'm going to be discussing snails. Snails are little creatures that are found in almost every habitat on Earth except for the polar regions. Scientifically, these little guys are known as gastropoda. On the tree of life, they are in the domain Eukarya and kingdom Animalia, and they belong to phylum Mollusca. So, where do snails live? The natural habitat of snails is going to be pretty much anywhere you can think of. You can find them in forests, fields, wetlands, gardens, rivers. Anywhere there is organic matter that they can feed on, they will be there. Although they do prefer to live in moist areas, so you'll see a lot of them under logs or rocks or along riverbanks where that soil is going to be constantly moist. So what do snails eat and how do they eat? Now, snails are pretty cool little guys because they can pretty much eat anything. But most of them eat organic matter like plants, fruit, vegetables, or decaying plant life. But there are some carnivorous species that will eat nematodes, worms, or even other snails. So how do snails eat? So snails have something called a radula. It's a structure along their mouth that's covered in little tiny teeth that are made of chitin. The radula moves back and forth and breaks off little tiny pieces of food. So it kind of scrapes whatever they're eating and it breaks it up so they can draw it into their esophagus and then into their stomach where they can digest it. So snails, prey and predator relationship. As I said previously, most snails eat organic matter such as plants, but there are some species that will eat animal feces, animal remains, nematodes, or other snails, and snail eggs. Snails are typically, though, the food source for other animals like birds, reptiles, small mammals, and even some insects larvae are known to eat snails. So they are typically the prey. They even have a self-defense mechanism, and they secrete a mucus that kind of looks like a foam that typically is foul tasting to predators to deter them away. Some unique traits that snails have is going to be their radula, which is that structure that's kind of like small little teeth they use to break up food. They have their tentacles that they use to find food. And then they have this little thing called a nemostome, which is the organ that they use to breathe. And it's going to be kind of at the base of their shell. And then they also have a mantle, which lines the inside of their shell and houses all of their organs. So the importance of snails to the ecosystem and humankind. So land snails play a pretty important role in calcium cycling. Calcium cycling is the movement of calcium through the land, ocean, and organisms. So since they require calcium to keep their shell growing, and then as predators eat them, those animals absorb the calcium from the shell, and then as those animals defecate, the calcium goes back into the earth. They're also decomposers, so they take the nutrients from decaying matter and they recycle it back into the soil through their feces and shells once they die. Humans also like to use snails as a base for multiple culinary dishes. The most commonly known one is going to be escargot. And there's even been some research on snail mucus and how it contains healing properties. And then this is just a list of my sources. So thank you so much for listening.